Good afternoon and welcome back to Central Valley Business. If you were tuning in before, we had some technical issues, so we apologize for that. And if you're just tuning in, you didn't miss a damn thing, so it's totally fine. So welcome. We're here with Kayla Moon, A Future of Minds. It's a great concept, it's a great business, and she's here to tell us all about it.
All right, so I'm here today. Thank you so much for opening this platform. I really want to talk about something that is maybe under the radar or not being spoken on, and really about highlighting what's going on here in Fresno right now in the Central Valley. And what we're seeing right now is essentially a Renaissance culture that's taking place. The art scene is pretty much at the top of its game right now. That's been at the last about 10 years, and it's really, really amazing to see. And you know, I talk to a lot of artists. I am an artist myself, and what I've been seeing is that there's a lack of economy when it comes to the artists in our community. And so there's people that have dedicated their entire lives to their art, to their craft, who are unable to make a living. Right now in California, there's people are petitioning to raise the minimum wage to about $15. Artists are not even making that. And so we're talking about people who are masters at their crafts, barely getting by. We're talking about single mothers who are literally putting their hearts on walls, showing people timelines and deep, intimate relationships that they've had who are barely able to get by. And so I want to talk a little bit about the future of Fresno and what we're going to see within the Central Valley. And it's really, really amazing because within the last 10 years, Clovis has grown by 40%. That's a huge exponential number. People say that within 2020, or by 2020, we're going to have 1 million people in this city. And so what I want to ask people is, how are we going to support our community? How are we going to build infrastructure? How are we going to provide resources to the people who are giving back? An interesting fact, there's only about 2% of people who work within community resources as well as social justice issues here in Fresno, California, and only 1% of our community that represents the arts, media, and entertainment.
Wow.
And so that's a very, very small number, but what we're seeing is this huge amount of growth, this huge amount of emphasis in the arts, into culture, and how are we going to support that? You know, another thing that I want to highlight is the fact that for so long, the Central Valley has been a corporate testing ground, and a lot of people know it. I don't think that people really grasp how deeply these corporate influences have on our lives. They tested out the Doritos taco here, and that's probably one of the biggest things that people know about when we talk about the corporate testing grounds within the Central Valley. But what some people don't know is that they've actually tested different forms of currency. So the credit card, which is now global, was tested here in Fresno.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, and so we're seeing that we're so used to having these corporate entities learn how to sell and buy and trade, and we're not locally community minded because we're so used to having these things pushed onto us, and our bodies used as testing grounds. And so how are we going to, take back our bodies, take back our mind, take back our resources, and really begin to invest it into the things that matter, into the things that count? And so another thing that I would really like to highlight, and I know I'm kind of jumping quickly, but it's a lot of information I want to get out there. So we're seeing right now in California, Los Angeles and the Bay Area are being extremely gentrified. And so there is a mass migration going on. And where are people going? Where are these UCLA students going? Where are these, FITM students? Where are these really intelligent, creative people going? They're moving towards the Central Valley because that's where the cheaper rent is at. So how are we going to create infrastructure? How are we going to create platforms and resources to support these individuals? And so I really think it's important to begin to uplift the value of our community, because so many people walk around with a low value and low self-worth. Why is that? Because we've been given the shit end of the stick for a really long time. Fresno is the second most impoverished community in all of California. And so for a really long time, we've had this lack of value. And so I think that it's an identity that we need to recreate within ourselves and really start seeing our worth, because we're growing. We have value. We have incredibly talented artists and community members that need to be acknowledged, that have to, be given the resources. So I'm here to demand that economy be created for our artists, for our creators, for this new influx of people that are going to be focusing in on Fresno. And I think that we have the talent and we have the creativity to allow Fresno to become the new art mecca of California, to become the new mecca of all of California. I think it's really an exciting time.
I absolutely agree with you, and I kid you not, I was just having a conversation like this last night where someone was saying, like, I wish I didn't have to get a second job. If I had the talent, I would invest in making things, but there's not really a market for it in Fresno at all, and that's not the first person I've even heard say it. I have, like, established artist friends to say the same thing, like, this is just not a buyer's town. It's kind of depressing because there are a lot of creative people here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And North Fresno, we see you coming down to the art hops and whatnot, and we're asking you to spend your money, to spend your cash, and not have that buy one, get one mentality, because so often we undervalue what artists are actually putting out there and not taking into consideration the time, the energy, and the resources. I cannot tell you how many artists spend their entire life creating these beautiful, these beautiful things for us. And it's not just to look at, this is a lifestyle that we have to begin to support. And if we don't begin to support it, I'm going to tell you right now that there's a burnout period, right? Where people, they just can't create anymore. It goes from about 3 to 5 years. So you can work someone as a volunteer for about 3 to 5 years, and they get burnt out, and they stop creating, and they lose interest, and they stop giving back to their community.
It's absolutely true.
And so we're on a cusp right now, where everything's booming, the artists are out, people know about it, and it's amazing, but there isn't that funding going into it to sustain what's going on. And so it's really, really important that we begin to understand that, this isn't just something that we do once a month. This is a lifestyle. This is a living that people are trying to make. And, just a story that I'm wearing a ring right now by, who was created by Evelyn Faye.
I know her.
Yeah, she's an amazing, incredible musician, incredible artist. She's selling her jewelry right now. She's pregnant. She's selling her jewelry so she can have a stay-at-home birth, and she's pushing her products out here for us, for Fresno, for the Central Valley, for our community, so she can birth her child at home. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about people's, I was talking just this last Thursday at Art Hop with a single mother who was trying to get her child into daycare. And this was one of the only resources that she had, that she was fueling to try to get funds to send her child to a daycare so she can continue to work to support herself. We're talking about people's lives, their livelihood. And the fact that people go there to Art Hop to just, drink some wine and kick it with their homies, maybe smoke a little weed in an alley. We're talking, it needs to go a little bit deeper than that. We need to begin to start taking our artists seriously and supporting that community. And that's why I'm here today to talk about that.
Absolutely. Can you explain maybe for our viewers what you mean by like a Fresno Renaissance? Because I think that's a really interesting term.
Yeah, definitely. So during the Renaissance period, there's a very low value with what was going on. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of crime. And, people began to take interest in art because it made them feel good, because it made them think differently about what was going on and maybe see the world in a different light. And what's really interesting is when you start to integrate beauty into your community, it uplifts the value that people hold. And so not only did the value of their own community rise, but their forms of democracy actually started to become much better. And so the infrastructure started to build, and we started to see color and beauty be integrated into into that time period, and some masters of the entire, span of art came from that time period. And I think that if we focus in and if we give our artists resources, we can really see a renaissance here in Fresno, California. And
absolutely,
I want to use just an example. So Manchester Mall, right? That's in the center of Fresno. It's on Blackstone. It's a main street here. That is one of the ugliest damn buildings I've ever seen in my life, and it's just like, throw a little paint on it, throw a little creativity into it, and watch how the value of that area grow, and there's just so many projects. I think that in opening up the platforms to our artists, we're just going to see a growth and beauty come out of our community that we could never even possibly imagine. And it will just create itself. So I think there's so much potential going on right now.
Absolutely. And I think that happened kind of at Storyland, too, because that was going to be, torn down at some point. But then the community was invited to, help renovate it, and people were painting the murals together there.
Right.
And now it's a lot more, people are going to it again. It's, has new life there now.
Exactly. So let's start creating identities. Also, look at different communities that have worked. When we go to Los Angeles and we go to the Bay Area, there's Little Chinatown, there's Japantown, there's infrastructure, and there's items that allow people to know. It highlights that region, so people go there and spend their money and spend their resources in that area because it's special, because it's unique, because it holds value in what's created there. And so it's really an interesting time to be in, definitely.
I totally agree with you. There is definitely, I think, an influx in people not only just caring about their town right now, but people surging in creativity. And it's true that we need to support it and nurture it and not necessarily tell them, go get a job, focus your time on something else. It's important to nurture that because it's easily diminished depending on who you are, for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, if you like what Kayla's talking about, she's going to be having her own show here on one of our sub-networks called Clean Cut TV3 called Streets of Fresno. Can you talk about what that show is going to be about?
Yeah, so Streets of Fresno, it's a new idea, and I think that, it's really going to be about highlighting what I'm talking about in that Fresno Renaissance. What's going on in the streets? What's going on, in your own neighborhood? And I specifically want to focus in on marginalized communities that have been historically ignored in this town, right? We're talking about East Fresno, West Fresno. We're talking about the communities that have continuously had a lack of funds. Another interesting fact, that's a really sad one, is in West Fresno, we have the highest infant death rate in the entire nation. And that's because people in West Fresno don't have access to transportation. They don't have access to basic needs. And so, when I'm talking about this renaissance, I want to specifically integrate that into the communities that have historically been ignored in this town. And it's amazing how a cafe or a library or a park or something very simple can breed life, and another thing is the transportation in this town. It is so off. And what people don't understand is if you have a city that has decent transportation, that means you're moving money around in the community because you get someone that has money to go to work a job that gets more money for the business and for them where they can dispense it into the community. And so, having a lack of transportation, having a lack of research, these are basic needs. And what I also would like to mention is that this is election year right now. And so I think that we really if we come at it at a certain angle, we can, shift the conversation. We can shift the dialogue. Why would people care if we have clean water or not if they don't value themselves, right? And so if we uplift the value, then we can uplift these important issues and actually fight for them because these people have been for so long ignored. And so, when you have low self-esteem, when you have low worth, you're not going to demand the right to transportation. You're not going to demand the right for clean water and clean food because you don't feel like you deserve it, And so it's really, really, really important to, I'm just always going to go back to uplifting that value. Fresno, you are badass, and I'm telling you right now, I've lived in the Bay and I've lived in Los Angeles, and I'm telling you right now that we have more talented artists here in the Central Valley than either of those places, and I'll tell you why. Los Angeles is fueled on ambition, right? The people, they're all about the industry there. They're not really about the community. They're not really feeding back. They're all about, getting to the top. And so it creates a really competitive industry, which doesn't, allow the human spirit to be fueled. The Bay Area, that's in the process of being gentrified right now as well. And so, we're seeing this huge tech industry come in and really strip the art and strip the life and strip the culture out of these cities. And what we got going on right now in Fresno, we're at ground zero. We don't have resources. We don't have infrastructure. So we're doing it for the love of this shit, And so that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it so raw. The talent is just out of control. You go to an open mic, that thing is packed because we don't have money to go to the theaters or go to the mall. And so we're here giving back to our community. And so I think it's so amazing. I love Fresno. I love the people here. I think they have just such an amazing outlook on life, and they're genuine human beings that just want to share a little piece of themselves, and a little piece of how they see the world. And so why not give back to that? And really, what's so interesting is corporations, they put a price tag on each and every one of us, and they value all of our bodies, each individual, as $1 million. That means that you're worth $1 million in your entire lifetime to these corporations. So where are you going to spend your million? That's what I'm asking you all today. Where are you going to spend your $1 million? Because that's so important. Are you going to spend it at the mall, at Fashion Fair? Are you going to continue, supporting the corporations that test Dorito tacos on your body? Or are you going to give back to people that actually care? And that's the question, and that's why I'm here today. Totally.
It's infectious as hell. I love that you're here, and I'm glad that this is why you're here. If this doesn't make you proud of Fresno, always remember, Cher is from Fresno, and she's an artist.
Woo! Totally.
Thank you so much for being here. She will be back this Thursday on Artist and Author, so you don't want to miss that. Stay right here after these messages.
Thank you.